what did you do before YouTube?
I had a lot of jobs. It's kind of like how I collect hobbies. I feel like I was collecting jobs for a while there just to sort of learn the skills.
What kind of jobs?
I did like data entry. I've done sales. I've done logistics for like a furniture company. I think everybody's been a server, or if not, everybody should be a server probably at least once in their life. I think that's a good. Did you serve? You must have served, right?
Oh, dude, I was a waiter for 10 years.
Of course. Yeah, okay.
All right, so you did data entry.
Yeah.
For what? Like, what are we talking?
Okay,
here?
so to be fair, it wasn't data entry, but that was a component of it. So it was data analysis for a quality control company. So they get a whole bunch. Like I'm sort of an Excel whiz, not to brag. So they would get a whole bunch of data in from their quality control lines of fail rates and everything else, and then they would be up to me to sort of take that information and figure out trends and graph things and make projections and make packets and stuff like that to send so they could present to the board or whatever else and make calls on it. That part wasn't up to me, but
that's so funny. That little part right now makes sense why your episodes look and feel the way they do. You're like so used to numbers and graphs, and you know what I mean?
I do like data. Sometimes more than the art of it, like I'm much more interested in
comparisons. I do well. I do very well. Give me something to compare.
It's
the data. Let me measure
it. Exactly. I'll take a new camera and I'll run the same test, 40 times with just slight changes on them so I can see, trends and stuff. I like it. It stimulates me. So yeah, I did that. I did stuff like that, or whatever. I would say the biggest chunk of my time of a job would have been that I was in the Canadian military. I was an engineer for 6 years or so.
Doing what?
Yeah, so I guess like for those that don't know, the job of a military engineer, the way we put it here is to improve mobility of friendly troops. And
is this the story at Sony Camera Camp?
Yeah.
Where you?
Yeah, I guess so. Well, that was a part of it.
So at Sony Camera Camp, Gerald gave this very, very profound speech. I hope to God somebody that went to camp filmed it. It was profound, dude. First of all, Sony Camera Camp was packed with about, I don't know, maybe 100 people, 100 Sony creators that are like these are all people that are doing very, very, very well.
Yeah, I think I was like the smallest channel there, probably.
Well, I don't know. I mean, everyone knew you. So, but anyway, there was like a rallying morning after breakfast, and they're telling us what the plans are of the day. And Gerald, like the microphone's kind of going around the room, and everyone is giving their 2 cents. And then the microphone goes to Gerald, and Gerald gives this like 10-minute speech on like what he used to do before YouTube and how grateful everyone should be because he was literally digging ditches before. And just like how even on his worst day, it's still better than his best day digging ditches.
I mean, that's true. That is true, that part.
The whole room was just silent. Like no one said, and everyone just kind of looked up at Gerald, and everyone knew who you were too, but they were like, wow, I didn't think something so profound could come from Gerald Undone.
That's, well, first of all, thanks, man. That's really flattering. It's easy to get lost in that if whatever you're doing now has its own challenges and stuff. So I think just as a human, in order to function, you have to be working out the challenges and everything. And it's like that frog metaphor. Again, I'm terrible at these, but where you increase the temperature a little bit, and they don't realize it. So whatever you're in, you adapt to your environment and then whatever. But if you can take a minute, and I think this is what my speech was about, if you want to call it a speech, we were talking about burnout or something, right? That was the topic.
Oh, that's right. The topic was how to deal with burnout.
Yeah, and I was like, if you can somehow manage to take a step back, like out of whatever you're in, out of that YouTube sphere, which you need to be in to be successful because you got to work out all the little meta analytics or whatever. But if you could take a step out and then look at your life in a wider sense, there's probably something that everybody can relate to be like, oh wow, I'm making it, I've made it, I'm successful based on the fact that I'm now at Sony Camera Camp having a conversation about burnout with other creators. There's your sign. So just remember, through context of that, it's easy for me because I can remember being like sleep deprived for multiple days on some exercise about, building trenches with just a shovel and clay as part of some kind of, demonstration of what to do when things, because, with engineers, we have access to backhoes and stuff like that too, but they're like, well, what if you don't? So let's do an exercise where we dig trenches and we're not talking like trenches for like electrical, we're talking like, trenches, like World War I trenches,
Like, give me an idea. How these are like 20-foot trenches, or
Because we were set up in our little groups, we only really had to dig one enough for us so that we could then fill it back in when the exercise was over. But the idea was to dig a trench deep enough that you could stand in and only have sort of the top part of you hanging out the top, and be wide enough that your little fire team could fit in there, and also have like a little cubby where, I guess the easiest way to put it is that you could have cover. So if there was like a artillery attack, you'd have something you could hide under, for like shell fragments and that kind of thing.
Wow.
So it was that, but it was a whole exercise of like being on the attack and being on the defensive, and the defensive is digging and the attack is like doing patrols and walking through the jungle, and it's a whole sleep deprivation exercise too. And so I just like, it's almost like one of those like things that you just never forget, almost like a traumatic experience. I'm not trying to I'm not trying to overplay it, but so you just don't forget it. So then when you think of like your worst day on YouTube, like you said, you could just have like a moment, you're like, hey, at least I get up when I want to get up, and I have access to food and stuff, there's just that like,
that's true.
And I'm sure everybody has one of those, Do you have one where you, even on a bad YouTube day, where you go, at least I'm not doing that? And then you remember something from your jobs?
I mean, for the longest time, my life was working in restaurants. And so, I mean, like right now, I'm so grateful that I don't work in restaurants, because I would be taking unemployment, and I would be, that would probably eat away at me right now. You know what I mean? I would be making X amount of dollars if I was working, but I would be making a guaranteed $600 a week if I was on unemployment. And considering just how difficult being a waiter is, and just like your life, you are literally serving other people. You're not serving yourself, you're serving others. And it's not like service and gratitude, like living a noble life of giving help to others. You're giving help to others that are unappreciative of it, that don't even understand. Like, for example, I would, at one of the busiest restaurants I would work, I had severe back pain because I was running from table to table. And we had, like, some days it was such a tourist trap that we had like 20, like I had 20 tables in my section at this tour. So I wasn't giving like the best service.
That's too many tables.
It's way too many tables. This was a tourist trap in Beverly Hills that had auto gratuity, and so the only way you made money, we're talking about tourists from all walks of the world that don't tip. You only made money by just massive sales and like selling $5,000-$6,000 a day. I remember like I would legitimately walk 6 to 8 miles a day in like my serving shoes. And by the end of the day, I'd have severe, like, crippling back pain. And, like, that's something, I haven't had back pain in, like, 4 years now. 5 years. It's been...
So do you use that as your anchor of
Well, like... that's part of the... Yeah, that's a good anchor. Like, not having, like, awful back pain and waking up in pain every day. That's a huge one, sure. But also, like, having a sense of purpose. When I went from serving others and literally waiting on others for my life to live... what happened is I turned 30 and I said I didn't want to be at a restaurant over the age of 30. I will do anything I can to not be at a restaurant. Now keep in mind, I'd been working at a restaurant since I was 19. That was my profession. And so at the age of like 29, I quit. And this was February 14th, 2014. I left the restaurant industry for good.
That's a restaurant day too.
Yeah. Well, I left Top Dog, dude. I sold like $9,000 that night on Valentine's Day. I was like #1 salesman, whatever. And I was like, that's it.
And you hung it up.
Good. Yeah, exactly. I was like, left on a bang, goodbye. And then I was broke for a really, really long time. And we're talking, like I had met my wife right around that time, about 3 months before. And so we were dating, and she was living in Arizona. And I was so broke that she was having to pay for dinners, and she was driving out. I couldn't afford to drive out to Arizona. At 30 years old, I was scraping the bottom of the barrel. Like I was the lowest point in my life. And it wasn't until I got some of my work filming homes got featured on this television show, and this producer found me, that I got my first big break working for television. And then from there, it just skyrocketed. I was 2 years later, I was shooting professionally on primetime television, the #1 show on the network on CNBC, Secret Lives of the Super Rich.
So you call this CNBC thing your first big break. So I want to know a bit more about that, but I also want to know, how does YouTube then compare to it? Isn't that a big break too? You know what I mean? So break it down.
So I was filming these I had decided that I wanted to film homes. And just because it was like, I feel like the learning curve was pretty easy on that. And you can kind of be left alone, and you have time to figure it out. If you need to reshoot something, you can always come back and reshoot the house, right? But I spent about a week doing a video that I only charged for one day. One day's worth I charged $400 to do this video, and I spent a week doing it, waiting.
That's why you were broke.
What I needed is it was a showcase. It was a $5 million home. Yeah. It was the most expensive home that I had done. And I decided right then and there I was going to double down. I was going to make this the best video I could, and like using the limited amount of resources I had. And I just over the top went above and beyond. I made sure like color grading and just everything, the flow. Then I gave it to my realtor friend, and he put it up on his channel. And then what happened is the producer of this television show, Secret Lives, was actually looking for a property that was listed that was undervalued.
That is a lucky turn of events there.
Yeah, so they were basically building this whole, they would, take 2 or 3 homes and do a piece on those 3 homes. And so they were looking for a home that was undervalued, that was about $5 million, but looked like it was $10 million. And they found my video, and the producer was blown away. And the only way he contacted me was because at the very end of the video, I had my little logo. It flashed on for like a second, and that was it. And so he hunted me down based on the logo and my website or whatever. I got a call randomly from New York, and it was like, "We'd love for you to license us the footage, and we'd love to feature your bit on television." I was like, "Awesome, that was great." And I remember him being like, "How does $1,000 sound?" And like I was like, "What? Just to license the footage?" And apparently that's like the going rate for footage if you're gonna license footage for television. That's like the minimum, you know what I mean? That's what you should be getting.
It's like a Nightcrawler if you're out shooting, news footage or whatever, and they buy
news
your
footage
footage.
Is cheap. I've done that before, and is much cheaper. It's like $250.
The whole idea of like, is it people talk about, oh, you just got lucky or whatever, and I even sort of made a joke. Well, I just said that was talk about luck, but I want to elaborate on that, because the great thing about your story is that it goes to show there's always a little bit of luck involved, like always like good timing or right place, the right time.
Yeah.
But working hard, I think, creates a lot more opportunities for that lucky break to take place. Because if your video was junk, it wouldn't have mattered that it just so happened that producer was watching. You would have never have known that he was watching, and you missed. So maybe all the time there are these sort of lucky threads floating around there, but we only ever attach ourselves to them if you put in the work. And I think that that's a great story sort of proving that concept, that it's only a little bit of luck.
My stepdad, who is my old stepdad, he's dead now. He was a psychiatrist. He told me that success is when opportunity meets preparation. And that's that was like exactly that moment where I had just put all the resources into it, and then this perfect time pitch comes, and I just crack it, and I'm ready. You know what I mean? I've tried to take that like further with the channel and such, and I do think that it's happened to me a couple more times, but that was 100% the best. And I'm very fortunate. I don't know where I would be if that break didn't happen.